At the heart of the Huberson Project is a discovery. The Huberson Project is a new executive design house which guides leaders toward a new way of seeing and a new way forward for genuine stewardship of self, company, and the world.
I recently watched the movie Air, which is basically the movie about the Air Jordan shoe and how Nike made that happen. And what I saw as I was watching the movie is that Nike actually created a whole new category of how you would work with your athletes and how you would sign them up and how you would just share revenue down the line. It was a whole new category, and it was a crazy idea that was put basically in front of the head of marketing for the basketball shoe, and then it went to the CEO, Phil Knight. And there was a lot of enrolling and convincing that had to happen for the CEO to be able to even sign on to that crazy idea, because it was a big risk. They were going to put all of their budgeted money, all of their available budgeted money to get one star who was unproven. Michael Jordan was just coming out of college and just entering, participating with the Chicago Bulls. And then as it went forward, the CEO was going to have to take it to the board to really be able to say, yes, we're going to let this go this way. And in the beginning, you saw the CEO be pretty darn nervous about that, because it was a big departure from business as usual standards. And Nike was behind the game, behind the eight ball in securing sports shoes. They had the market on running shoes, but they were trying to enter the market on basketball shoes and support a whole new way going forward. Once the CEO could really see that it was a part of his vision for the company and it would set a direction he really wanted, which is why he hired the team he did, then he was able to say, great, I will take care of the board. You go do what you need to do. Secure the deal. Let's get it signed. I will deal with the board. It was really a kind of a gamble because they'd never done it before. It was territory that you couldn't put statistics in front of them. You couldn't put measures in front of them. You had to talk to the board in a particular way that they could see the possibility and imagine what could happen and be willing to take that risk, to place that bet. Sometimes boards respond to that and sometimes don't. They don't. In this case, the CEO was effective. Personally, he was effective in his conversation with the board. It reminded me of times that I had to go in front of boards myself to make things happen, to help mobilize resources and make things happen and get the agreement that we needed to have to move forward. And you find yourself at the intersection of all contradiction when you're ready to make a new move that doesn't have a past associated, a successful past or any past associated with it. The board wants to know that they're good stewards of where the company's headed. In my case, we were headed into some new territory for fast food, in being able to put new products on the menu that would start to educate our consumer in what regenerative agriculture it really is and why it's important right now for the issues that are in front of us. This has been a traditional company, and his clients, the demographics were mostly boomers and above, some Gen X and not too many millennials as you look at the demographics. Being able to put the case in front of the board as I was using our operating system, I can see there are things that I would do differently as we look at setting the direction of the company, aligning the organization, and assembling and mobilizing the team that is 100% behind the vision and a part of aligning the organization. I saw that I needed to start further upstream to really be able to carefully assemble the team I needed to have that would add to the confidence of a promise that we could do this, we can make this happen, and here's the way we'll do it. That can add to the ability we needed to have to align the organization. Because to move from a pretty traditional kind of organization that did some groundbreaking stuff, and move it into the next generation is a big job. And so how much of the tradition do you let go of? And how much do you keep? And how much do you alter? And then do you have a team that can appreciate and value the traditions and also see this new unknown territory and be able to integrate both? If I had it to do again, I would go further upstream. That's what our operating system enables you to do, is to really go further upstream and drop in on, okay, for this vision, knowing the issues of tradition and new, who do I need? The skill set on the team, I needed something a little bit different, not because the people on the team were wrong or bad or weren't effective, weren't great people, not about that. Really about, do I have the team that can really integrate this vision and do the work of bringing the tradition in the past as well as the new into the next territory? And I learned by some mistakes that I made that the issue was between tradition and new. And it was too scary for the board as it was. And so they made decisions to not do that and to pull back into more traditional things, which is great. That's what they needed to do. My ability to see that as we move forward, I learned so much out of that time in which I could see, oh, here's the things I missed in setting the direction. Here's the things I needed to know aligning the organization. And here's the pivot point for us in that organization to be able to address the board. Learning what I learned increased my own personal effectiveness, increased my own learning and my wisdom in terms of how it needs to now get brought forward for other CEOs. There are things to truly drop in on, be present to, and expand your awareness about so that you can see the whole picture. And then you can get ahead of the curve when it comes to something as important as creating a new category for a company, because it's scary. And if the people aren't ready to make that kind of agreement together, then there will be conflict, greater conflict than you actually need. So when you're at the intersection of all contradictions and you feel the pull, you feel the pull from your team, you feel the pull of your vision, you feel the pull of a future that wants to happen that's calling, and you feel the pull of the board, and then you feel any of the dissension that might be happening in the company. You feel those things as you're at the intersection of all contradiction, and then you need to make a move. You need to make some choices about, where do I go and how do I start to, in aligning the organization, how do I pull these disparate parts together into an alignment that then the board can actually see and have a sense of confidence in a brand new move. The structure of mind that's actually needed is your ability to step out of all of those pulls and pressures, and they're very insistent. It's an enormous thing. And then there's the pull of the financials, which every board wants to hear about. To be able to rise to a higher perspective that really starts to bring the different views and the different attitudes into a higher version, to hear the concern, but also bring in the future that wants to happen, requires a different structure of mind and a higher perspective, more of an integral unitive perspective that doesn't say, well, you've got your opinion and you've got your view and you've got your view and you've got your view and all those views are important and I'll have my view. And so now let's see how we get to this. You won't be able to make a choice or a decision from that place. You will try and figure it out. And in figuring it out, your mind just starts to zero in on 2 or 3 of the problems, but not the whole. And so the structure of mind that you need to be able to say, I will deal with the board, is that you're clear about the direction. You're clear about how it's aligning and what the challenges are. You're clear about the team you have and what you can and cannot rely on. And you have seen, as you've risen above and stepped back in kind of a meta position and then risen above to a higher perspective, which requires a different state of mind, a different structure of mind, you then see the pathway through dealing with the complexities that would have you say, I can deal with the board. You can empower your team. You can say yes to the terrifying unknown possibility because you don't know how it's going to turn out. You can stay true to your vision and the future that wants to happen. There is a way through. And it does require cultivating and developing a higher structure of mind, a transrational thinking, a Hugh-person awareness that actually has you start to see what life wants, what's incoming from the future, and how you start to navigate and communicate with that.
In terms of the immune system response, that from that integral unitive perspective, that just becomes one of the threads of the conversation. It's not something to oppose or something to make wrong or deal with in the traditional way we think about that. It's just, okay, that's part of life, that life has immune system responses to self, not self, and a new initiative will be seen as, well, this isn't who we are, this isn't how we do things. That sense of the who we are in transition from an integral unitive perspective would be, okay, there will be a number of people who have immune responses in a number of different ways, and that's part of life. And it becomes part of the generative response at the intersection of contradictions. That is the opportunity. We said that being at the intersection of all contradictions is an opportunity. Part of that intersection of contradictions is the various immune responses to this isn't who we are and this isn't how we do it at multiple levels. And it just becomes part of the conversation that you're up to, interested in, and inviting in. So then that view of the opportunity and the view of the landscape you're moving in is the immune system response is not ignored and is not discounted. It's just integrated.
Mm-hmm.
And on multiple levels, then the CEO coming from that personal effectiveness, having a practice of knowing yourself and cultivating that higher structure of mind means that then I'm willing to step into the place of the ability to respond to the considerations of the board, the considerations of the stakeholders, the considerations of the team, the considerations of the opportunities and the challenges. I'm up to the ability to respond from a higher integral perspective that allows me to be empowered in that choice and to be able to say, I can and I will be responsible for this decision. And then bring that vision and carry that vision and integrate that vision with all the parties involved.
We're in a time in the world in which companies may have to look for different metrics of success. And we have been very oriented toward profit and making more and more and more and more money. And it has been at the expense of our natural ecosystem. And part of what Daniel's pointing to, for us to engage in how do we still have a profitable business, and maybe we see a whole different way to include co-creating with life, so that our decisions for making more and more and more money don't actually destroy the home that we live in, for example. What I learned along the way in being a CEO at the intersection of all contradiction and engaging with Daniel in these conversations, I could see what worked from the past wasn't going to continue to work. And so I had to let go of some ways that I knew to do it from the past And as I began to develop this integral unitive perspective, I could see things that I couldn't have seen before. And I was in a learning curve. So there were things I missed. And it wasn't fatal. It really was, wow, I now see so much more of what it takes to be at the intersection of all contradiction. I can learn from what worked. I can learn from what I need to let go of. I can bring in more of what was missing and what I needed to learn, what I needed to see, how I needed to do that. So there were parts of the immune system I didn't see that I needed to see. There were parts and places with my team that I knew, but I didn't trust myself enough in the intersection of all contradiction and all the players that were there to say, yep, I got to make this move. That's going to be a bold move and it'll communicate something and I need to do it anyway. And that's part of what this new structure of thinking, this new structure of mind, this integral unitive perspective and what it is to learn that and cultivate that. You can see more, you can see further, you see things you have to let go of, and you start to deal with the blindness that any human being has as you step into something, especially being at the intersection of all contradiction.
You've been listening to the Hugh Person Project, where leading with the future is the difference that makes the difference. Thank you to Lindsay Sterling for the evocative music. If you'd like to stay tuned to further episodes, please subscribe to this podcast. See you in the next episode.